you let me come near you. You're not black.
In 1939, Merle Oberon and Laurence Olivier's Wuthering Heights was the smash hit of the year. Film studio boss Sam Goldwyn boasted it was the best romance he ever made. But that's possibly because he completely ignored the second half of the novel and tacked on a happy ending. It's so easy to see Cathy and Heathcliff as blissful, star-crossed lovers, but there's so much more to their relationship than that. Yes, it's a love story, but one which turns into a tragedy of bitter revenge. A standoff between Heathcliff, a man on the verge of a nervous breakdown, and Cathy, surely literature's greatest diva. Together they are the ultimate love-hate couple, delivering the one thing that makes this book great, the immense passion we all dream of feeling, skewered by the madness and despair it eventually brings. There has never been a novel like it. It's been 20 years since I last walked up here, the Yorkshire moors where Emily Bronte lived, and where she set the story of Wuthering Heights. A story unique in literature, and one built around the most passionate lovers the novel has ever seen. Anyone who's ever suffered from obsessive love will feel a chill run down their spine when they think of Cathy and Heathcliff. They're a wild, willful, beautiful couple whose love affair is famous the world over. And sharing the highs and lows of that grand passion has become a rite of passage for generations of us. Like many schoolchildren in 1970s Britain, my first mesmerizing introduction to Wuthering Heights was via Kate Bush's #1 hit. A few years later, when I was a 19-year-old fledgling actor, I performed in a touring production of Wuthering Heights. And I was Heathcliff, of course. And we took our stage version of the novel around schools in Southern Ireland, and even then I realized the effect that Heathcliff had on people, as after many of the shows, young girls would come up and say, "Ah, you're Heathcliff, look, it's Heathcliff, ah, amazing, you're Heathcliff!" As if even by being associated with him, I became special. I remember one of the girls actually took a lock of my hair. Could do with that back now. Heathcliff, of course, is special, but not on his own. Not without Cathy, a woman who captivates him. A woman who captivated me right from the first moment I met her, in the opening pages of the book. But the Cathy we meet at the beginning of the novel comes from beyond the grave. She's been dead for 20 years, and it's her ghost that appears, not to Heathcliff, but to a man staying the night at Wuthering Heights. A man kept awake by a tree branch tapping at his window, till it drives him half mad.
Lost my way on the moor. Let me in.
Is anyone here? That means...
It's an astonishing scene.
Wicked little soul.
Which Heathcliff misses, and it leaves us desperate to learn who Cathy is and why she has this effect on him.
Come in! Come in! Cathy, do come! Oh, do! Once more! For my husband!
So how did it come to this? Well, we're about to find out by tracing the story backwards through 3 generations and 3 decades. I like to think of it as literature's greatest soap opera. The story is built around 2 families. The Lintons, wealthy, esoteric, you might say readers of the Daily Telegraph, and the Earnshaws. Gritty, down-to-earth, they probably take the Mirror. But they also take Heathcliff, a street kid from Liverpool who they adopt as their own at Wuthering Heights. Over the next few decades, there's a confusion of births, deaths, and marriages. But what endures throughout is the love between Catherine and Heathcliff. A love which is cultivated on the wild moorland that is their home, and a love which is expressed through some of the greatest speeches in the entire history of the novel.
I cannot look down to this floor, but her features are shaped in the flags, in every cloud, in every tree, filling the air at night and caught by glimpses in every object.
My greatest miseries in this world have been Heathcliff's miseries. If all else perished and he remained, I should still continue to be.
She is so immeasurably superior to everybody on earth.
I am Heathcliff.
It's perfect love, but it's not simple love. Because at the very moment Cathy confesses her love for Heathcliff, she also reveals that she's about to marry another man. Meet Edgar Linton, the local rich kid. Cathy, age 19, decides to marry him because, well, because he can offer her a step up the social pecking order. People forget how important class is to Wuthering Heights. Catherine knows Edgar's love is meaningless next to Heathcliff's, but she's a middle-class Earnshaw, and Edgar is a posh Linton, who seduces her not with his body, his spirit and his soul, but with his wallet.
I love Edgar because he is handsome and pleasant to be with, and because he is young and cheerful, and because he loves me. And he will be rich, and I shall like to be the greatest woman of the neighborhood. I shall marry him. It would degrade me to marry Heathcliff.
What did Cathy say? It would degrade me to marry Heathcliff. What a confused piece of self-awareness that was. Confused, maybe, but it's one of the novel's most famous lines. And it was written in this Yorkshire house by a 27-year-old vicar's daughter called Emily Bronte. This is the parsonage in Haworth, where she grew up. Here, she devoured books, and from an early age wrote and drew compulsively. Who could have guessed that a child who made up stories about toy soldiers would one day be one of the world's most famous novelists? Of course, it helped that there was more than one literary genius in the family. Together with Charlotte and Anne, the three sisters would be immortalized in this iconic painting, a painting that has become a Bronte's logo. But for me, Emily was the best writer in the family, and her own sister Charlotte agreed. She wrote of her, "I have never seen her parallel in anything." Still, you can't help wondering how such a uniquely disturbing novel could emerge from the mind of such a nice girl, a single girl who never really left home, never got her hands dirty with real life. Or did she? Emily has been variously described, in some cases by serious academics, as a dysfunctional lesbian, a pained anorexic, the 20th most erotic woman of the millennium. And a secret love rat who slept with her sister's fiancé, got pregnant and buried the resulting stillborn baby out here on the moors behind her house. Some people have even been known to come out here digging for the bones. Not me, obviously. I'm just turning over a bit of topsoil. It's all ridiculous, of course, but these myths do tell me something about how desperate we all are to understand Emily, the enigmatic Emily, who never gave anything away. In fact, She was much happier to let Catherine Earnshaw do all the talking. But then, I'm just a man, and like any of my kind, there's only so far I can go towards understanding a woman. Heathcliff has pretty much the same problem, which is why, when faced with a dilemma, he invariably escapes onto the moor, looking for answers which always seem just out of reach. I know how he feels. This whole magnificent landscape around me is a metaphor for the love which pulses between Catherine and Heathcliff. So powerful, so beautiful, so bleak, and so unchangeable. Unlike the weather, which, would you believe, is mentioned 86 times during the course of the novel. How terribly British. On that basis alone, you might vote this your favourite book of all time. The weather and the brooding setting are powerful and symbolic forces in Wuthering Heights. But for me, the real nerve-tingling power of this novel is most beautifully distilled in the torrid relationship between its two central characters.
Kathy, all my life, how can I bear it?
Almost halfway through the novel, the story reaches crisis point. In the 4 years since she married Edgar Linton, Cathy has barely seen Heathcliff, and now she's about to give birth to Edgar's child. But without Heathcliff, her life has been hell. She despises Edgar, and she's been refusing food. She's on the edge of physical and mental collapse. In short, she's dying.
I wish I could hold you till we were both dead. Why shouldn't you suffer? I do.
Don't torture me till I'm as mad as yourself! Is it not enough for your infernal selfishness that while you are at peace, I shall writhe in the torments of hell?
Wishing you greater torment than I have. I only wish us never to be parted.
Why did you betray your
You
own...
would not relent a moment to keep me out of the grave. That is how I'm loved.
Why did you betray your own heart,
Let
Kathy?
me alone.
I have not one word of comfort. You deserve this.
Let me alone.
You have killed yourself. You loved me. Then what right had you to leave me?
If I've done wrong, I'm dying for it.
Because nothing that God or Satan could inflict would have parted us. You of your own will did it.
You left me too.
I have not broken your heart. You have broken it.
It is enough.
And in breaking it, you've broken mine. I must go.
You must not go.
For 1 hour.
Not for 1 minute. No!
I'll see you again.
Don't go.
Before you were asleep.
It is a lifestyle.
I won't stray 5 yards from your window.
I should die. I should die.
It's the greatest love-hate scene I've ever read. It's brimful of confusion, confession and regret, and is no doubt a painful reminder to many of us of our own personal love stories. A few hours after Heathcliff's futile visit, Cathy gives birth to Edgar's child, and then she dies. It's incredibly moving, but somehow inevitable, because death is central to the story of Wuthering Heights.
The book delivers no less than 11, yes, 11 corpses. That's about 1 every 30 pages, which might seem like a lot of deaths to us, but it wouldn't have felt like that many to Emily.
In Emily's day, Haworth was a filthy outpost of the Industrial Revolution, where 4 out of 10 children died before they reached the age of 6. The Brontes may have been middle class, but they were not immune. At the age of 30, Emily herself was to die of tuberculosis. It was just 1 year after the novel had been published, and she didn't receive a penny in royalties.
Tragically, Wuthering Heights was her only novel.
There's a chilling postscript to Emily Bronte's death. Soon after she died, the graveyard at Haworth was shut down. Over the years, 40,000 rotting corpses had created a subterranean tide of deadly body sludge. By the middle of the 19th century, This toxic waste had begun seeping into the village well, poisoning the fresh water. In Wuthering Heights, there's an equally chilling tale. Because once Cathy is dead and the novel enters its second half, something here also becomes poisoned. Something goes bad.
And that something is Heathcliff.
You said I killed you. Haunt me then. Be with me always. Take any form.
Drive me mad!
The second half of Wuthering Heights remains a love story, but now it's the story of one man's obsessional love for a woman who is dead. This is the dark side of the book, in which Heathcliff, made bitter and twisted by pain and remorse, sets out to destroy everyone around him. It's the part of Wuthering Heights many people conveniently forget, including the makers of the famous Olivier epic. But not all film adaptations have ended so sweetly and ignored the madness and despair, like this one, from Japan. In Onimaru, the book became a shogun warrior epic, with Heathcliff's agony very much center stage. I think this image of him, so grief-stricken that he has to dig up Cathy's decaying corpse, may be closer to how Emily Bronte really wanted us to see him. But Heathcliff doesn't just love obsessively, he hates obsessively too. This is how he gets revenge on his own adopted brother, the boy who made Heathcliff's own childhood such a hell. When Wuthering Heights was published in 1847, many critics were appalled by scenes like this. One said the book was odiously and abominably pagan. Another was sickened by its inhumanity and diabolical hate.
But it's that very inhumanity which lifts this story above all others of its type. All the characters here are playing for such high stakes. It's all or nothing, blissful happiness or insanity. But we have a conundrum here. If Heathcliff is a villain of such Machiavellian proportions, then why is he such a hero? Why do all men want to be him, and all women just want him?
I think it's because we envy his passion. Some of us may even find something compelling in Heathcliff's dark side. So it's easy to forget that in the second half of Wuthering Heights, he's no great romantic lead. In fact, he's a complete psychopath.
But this is one psychopath who gets results.
With his adopted siblings, Hindley and Catherine, now dead, Heathcliff inherits Wuthering Heights, which means he can now move on to Plan B, destroying the Linton dynasty. To grab their money, not only has he married the Linton daughter, Isabella, no love there, I'm afraid, he also plots a marriage of convenience between Cathy Linton, heiress to the Linton estate, and Heathcliff's own son, confusingly christened Linton.
I hope you're following all this. But if you're not, don't worry. The whole family tree thing in Wuthering Heights is very confusing. But for now, all you need to know is that Cathy Linton is the baby girl born to Catherine Linton, née Earnshaw, on the night that she dies. And now, as the novel reaches its climax, some 17 years later, Cathy Linton, daughter of Catherine Linton, née Earnshaw, has come of age.
Like mother, like daughter. Young Cathy is a living reminder to Heathcliff of his lost love, and that makes him despise her. He's determined to take his revenge. Cathy comes from the wealthy Linton family, so he decides that this man, his own sickly son, should marry Cathy just so he can get her money.
Miss Linton, take your seat by him.
Here, at the end of the book, Heathcliff tries to force through the marriage by imprisoning Cathy and his son at Wuthering Heights.
Had I been born where laws are less strict and tastes less dainty, I should treat myself to a slow vivisection of you two as an evening's entertainment. By hell, I hate you.
I'm not afraid of you. Give me that key.
Catherine Linton, stand off.
I wouldn't eat or drink here if I was starving.
Or I shall knock you down.
We will go!
I know how to chastise children, you see. Go to Daddy now and cry at your ease. I shall be your father tomorrow. The only father you'll have in a few days. And you shall have plenty of that. You can bear plenty. You're no weakling. You shall have a daily taste, if I catch such a devil of temper in your eyes again.
Cathy's ultimate humiliation is the inevitable outcome of Heathcliff's deranged obsession. But can it really be the price of passion? Is this how it all ends? No. Emily Bronte knew that Heathcliff's hate had to burn out sometime, and eventually it does. With his revenge complete, Heathcliff becomes master of all he surveys. But at that very moment, he suddenly gives up.
I have lost the faculty of enjoying their destruction. I am too idle to destroy for nothing.
Which means that finally he makes his peace. Perhaps not with God, but certainly with himself.
We've all been through the pain barrier with Heathcliff and Cathy, and I can't help asking myself, did it need to be so horrible? Should the nation choose a story so dark and so grotesque as its favourite?
The answer has to be yes. This love story works not despite the horror, but because of it. How else can we understand the great passion that exists between Cathy and Heathcliff on earth and even beyond the grave without seeing the incredible pain that it causes? How can they have become such heroes without sending each other to hell and back?
Women wanting to model themselves on a character from literature could do worse than the beautiful and passionate Cathy. For my money, she beats Jane Eyre, Scarlett O'Hara and Lizzie Bennet hands down.
And what about the men? What price Darcy, Mr. Rochester, or even Rhett Butler? Well, frankly, my dear, do they really cut the mustard up against Heathcliff? A man who loves painfully, okay, sometimes even stupidly, but with a dark and total passion that those other pretenders can only dream of.
Which is why, given the choice, I'm with Heathcliff. This is a man who destroys for love, but only because love destroyed him. He's an outsider who brilliantly maneuvers himself to the center, and a victim who battles his way out of the abyss to be reunited with the only thing that ever mattered to him, Catherine Earnshaw.
Once they ran together against the wind. Now they're part of it. And without any doubt, the greatest lovers in the entire history of the novel.
Last night, I was on the threshold of hell. Today, I am in sight of my heaven.
Do come to me, Heathcliff. To escape to that glorious world. And to be always there.